All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of introducing Ms. Julia Papanek. I am so excited she's finally here with us today. She's a senior email developer and designer over at Hims and Hers, so super grateful she's here. She's talking about scaling your email design system for inbox domination. Let's give her a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Please, please. All right. And of course, the ham horn. Ladies and gentlemen, Julia Papanek, let's go and get the session started, and she'll be here for some Q&A. Make sure you put those questions in the Q&A tab, upper right-hand corner. Don't forget about that, and upvote. See you in just a little bit.
Hey everyone, I'm Julia. I'm super excited to be here with you all today, presenting on email design systems, specifically optimizations for how to scale your email design system. So a little bit of background on me. I've been working in the world of email marketing for 10 years now, and I've spent 4 of those years at Hims and Hers, where I'm currently a senior email developer and designer. Hims and Hers is a telemedicine company that offers a range of both prescription and over-the-counter products. And I'm really happy to be here with you all today to talk about email design systems and how I approached building one at Hims and Hers through my perspective as both a designer and a developer. Email has always been a space where teams have been asked to produce a lot with very little, but today more than ever, with smaller headcounts and tighter resources, those limits are really being pushed. Up until recently, I was the only email developer and designer at Hims and Hers responsible for designing and coding every email across the entire company, which is a pretty big job. I had to stay on my toes in order to keep things running smoothly and efficiently, and I identified a lot of ways our email design system could work harder for us and increase our speed and scalability. So today, I'm here to discuss and share those ways I optimized our design system and help identify some common pitfalls and what to do to avoid them. So let's take a look at the agenda. First, I'm going to lay some foundations like what is a design system to start. We'll take a look at what is typically in an email design system. And from there, we'll jump into my top 4 tips for how to scale your email design system, which include adding character counts, creating dynamic modules, establishing a different style for transactional versus marketing communications, and finally, setting up a roadmap for refreshing your design system. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. What exactly is a design system? At its core, a design system is a set of building blocks and standards that help create a unified framework and help maintain consistency. Having one is super helpful because it gives your team reusable visual elements that accelerate the design process and allow you to scale. So there really are a ton of benefits of putting one in place for your emails. It helps reduce errors, ensures consistency, and streamlines workflows. Instead of remaking components, designers are pulling from an existing library of options and quickly putting designs together. And that leads us to zoom in on our specific topic today of email design systems and define exactly what is included in one. So first, it's going to start with these foundational elements that set the overall design voice and tone. And they include things like logo, grid system, typography, colors, and iconography. The cool thing is that it's highly likely a lot of this already exists in your company's brand and digital design system. And if not, you can collaborate with those teams to create these guidelines together. I'll make a quick note here as well that at Hims, we use Figma for our designs and design system. I believe it's currently the industry standard and leading design tool for companies, and I highly recommend it for your design system as well. So after foundations comes some elements of the design system that are a lot more specific to email, and the first of which is your module library. A module library can be thought of as a collection of little building blocks or Legos, as people like to say, and you can plug and play them to build a variety of different emails. The types of modules include your headers, so that's like your logo and nav bar. You, of course, have your footers as well, your hero modules, secondary modules, which is any module that comes after your hero. And then you have spacers that dictate spacing between all of these different modules. Having this module library really does make designing so much more streamlined because you have all the components pre-made at your fingertips ready to use. And if you're just getting started with building out a module library, I recommend first auditing your existing top performing email designs and looking for common modules and then converting those to these types of wireframes. They can slowly start to build out a library. And what's one step above modules? Well, it's fully pre-made templates. So this space in your email design system is where you can use the modules from your library to build out pre-made templates that function like wireframes for your most commonly used templates. I just listed out some examples of pre-made templates that are included in the HIMSS design system, but really there is no rule for what types of templates to include in your design system. It's all dictated based off of what templates you find yourselves reaching for again and again, and what would be most helpful to have ready on hand to use and iterate on quickly. They can be inspired by type of comm, like at HIMSS we have a letter, reviews, and simple reminder templates, or they can be inspired by the actual layout, like a zigzag type of design, which is one we reach for a ton at HIMSS. And then finally, your design system would include documentation, which is where you would include detailed notes and instructions on how to use these different foundational elements, modules, and templates. Okay, cool. So now you know what a design system is and what's included in one. But how do you craft your email design system for total inbox domination? Well, let's take a look at some recommendations to help you scale and avoid common pitfalls. So that brings us to my first tip, which is including character counts. Have you ever gotten a little too excited about content and had your email turn out like this? Super bloated, super copy heavy, very overwhelming and difficult to digest. We've all been there, okay? Keeping copy succinct is always a challenge in email marketing, but Litmus found in a recent study that people spend just 9 seconds on average looking at an email. So short, scannable copy really is essential. I found a simple and easy way to prevent situations like that, where your copy is way too long in your email design, is by including maximum character counts for your module library and your pre-made templates, just like this example. Providing this upfront gives guidelines for your lifecycle marketing partners and copywriters so everyone gets on the same page from the very start in terms of how much content will fit in your email design. This can save so much back and forth when it comes to negotiating content and copy edits. And if you're having any difficulty getting buy-in from your cross-functional partners, I've also found it really helpful to suggest your team just establish these max character counts as an initial jumping off place, and then together test into different copy links from there to find out what works best for each template. So you can see a huge difference in these two emails. Lighter copy makes your message more clear. It makes it more scannable for those people just spending sheer seconds looking at it. The brevity also encourages click-through because it spikes enough interest to motivate customers to learn more. And finally, it helps your brand embody ease and simplicity, which for this email example in particular was super important because the content itself is explaining how the process of getting medication at HIMSS works and helping communicate to customers that it's simple and easy. The design needs to mirror that sentiment. So with all that said, you can see max character counts are a huge game changer in terms of streamlining the process of email creation and maintaining standards overall. Okay, and let's build on that with our second tip of creating dynamic modules. All right, so we're gonna get a little technical here in the design and dev space, so just a little bit of a heads up. So let's say you've gone through all your top performing emails, identified common hero and secondary modules, and have made wireframes of them, and then you run into this. I thought my design system would add efficiency. All these modules are getting overwhelming. This totally happened to me when I was first sketching out our module library at HIMSS. But as I was working through it, I noticed that a lot of the modules were actually super similar to one another with just slight variations. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. Some modules have a button and some don't. Some have a placeholder space for an image, that green square, and some don't. Some are in light mode, the white, while some are in dark mode, the gray, and some are built for desktop, while some are built for mobile. While different, all these modules can follow the same basic structure of image, headline, body copy, and a button. The variations you see between them are just determined by removing or swapping some of those elements, like removing the button or swapping from desktop to mobile. But nevertheless, the overall structure is similar across the board. Everything is center aligned, padding is consistent, font sizes remain the same, et cetera, et cetera. This is really just one hero module shown in a variety of different states. And if you took this approach to display all your different hero modules in your library, it would indeed get very overwhelming looking at dozens and dozens of different modules that just have slight differences from one another. So here's what we can do to solve that. Let's clean this up with the magic of variables and Boolean properties. And a quick reminder here, I use Figma for my design system, And that platform offers this functionality, which is one reason why I recommend it. So variables in Figma store reusable values like desktop versus mobile or light mode versus dark mode. Boolean properties, on the other hand, are created for layer visibility, like hiding or showing an image or text. Because of their dynamic nature, applying variables and Boolean properties to our modules allows our designs to be fluid and easily change with our needs. So let's take a look at the hero module from the last slide as an example. You can see on the left, we have a version with all the different elements displayed: the placeholder image, headline, body copy, and a button. In Figma, you can assign a variable or Boolean property to each element that you want to be dynamic. So you can see in that little black screen above, that's a screenshot of Figma. You actually have a dropdown for viewport that right now is set to desktop, but it could be set to mobile. You also have a toggle on-off switch for dark mode, button, image, and body copy. All these elements can change dynamically based on how you want this module to appear. And it's as easy as toggling a switch or choosing from a drop-down menu. On the left, our image toggle is set to on, but on the right, our image toggle is set to off. This means that instead of having a library that displays all the slight variations that are possible for one hero layout, you can instead house them within a single module and just assign variables or Boolean properties to elements you might want to customize while you're designing. Setting up the modules in your library this way will eliminate a ton of clutter, making designing emails a lot quicker and easier and help you scale your program overall. Okay, so that streamlines the design side of things, but you might be wondering, what about the HTML? Yes, that can be dynamic too. So as an example, let's check out the hymns footer module. It's super small, but if you look closely, you can see there's just one tiny difference between our marketing and transactional footers, and that's the inclusion of an unsubscribe link. Transactional footers are not required to include this because the content of these types of emails is considered essential for the customer to receive. So it's pretty common in email dev to have both of these different footer modules hard-coded across email templates. But I've found there's actually a way more efficient way of doing things, and that involves creating content blocks. So first, what is a content block? A content block is a pre-made piece of content, typically email code, that exists in one universal place on your email service provider and can be inserted dynamically across your email templates. Using content blocks in your templates instead of hard coding everything has a ton of benefits, like being able to make edits to one content block and apply them automatically across all the templates that contain that content block. And it's worth noting that at HIMSS, our email service provider, or ESP, is Braze. And this type of functionality is called content blocks in Braze. I think that terminology is pretty common, but I've also seen it called snippets, for example. If you're not sure where to find this in your own ESP, just connect with your customer success rep and they should be able to help you. So for this footer module example, you might think you need one content block for the marketing version and another for the transactional version, but you can go even one step further to streamline by utilizing some liquid logic. And what is liquid logic if you aren't familiar? It's an open source templating language that allows you to create dynamic content in emails. So in this example here, you're looking at HTML for the footer design you saw on the previous slide, and it's housed in a content block. What I've highlighted is the really fun part of the code that enables us to use one footer content block for both the transactional and marketing footers. We do that by creating a variable for email type and setting it equal to marketing. When that statement is true, it will display the code that comes next, which is the unsubscribe link. When it is not true, it will display what follows our else, which is nothing. The if-else statement just ends, meaning the unsubscribe link will not appear. That leads us to ask, how does this work in implementation? How do we actually use this content block in an email template? Here's an example. You're looking at some HTML from a random email template of ours, and at the bottom, you're seeing the implementation of the footer module. First, we assign that variable I mentioned before of email type to marketing. And then below that, the line of code with the handlebars is how you dynamically populate the footer content block from the previous slide. So implementation, once you have your content block set up, is super easy. You can plug the same one across all your emails and just assign your variable to customize. So this is just one example of the power of using content blocks. The opportunities to use them to streamline and scale your module code in this way are literally endless. At HIMSS, we just look for opportunities where we have modules or elements that repeat across multiple templates and only contain small differences from one another that could be controlled with variables. Okay, so now that we've talked about some of the specifics around design and code, let's consider some of the psychological implications of your design system, which brings us to tip number 3. Defining a different design style for transactional versus marketing emails. So let's do a little mini Where's Waldo of email designs. How easily can you pick out the transactional email template from this group? And how about now? It's a whole lot easier, right? Yes, it's the email on the right. You can clearly see that this email is very different from the other templates, whereas previously it was super similar. Here there are major differentiators between the marketing emails and the one transactional email. The marketing emails are very colorful with both the text and background colors. Some even have color gradients. They also have lots of interesting photography and lifestyle elements. And in this version, the transactional email on the right follows suit. It also has a color gradient background and lifestyle imagery. While beautiful, it makes it feel super similar to the other designs and doesn't do anything to visually communicate to the user that the nature of the content is different. Here, the transactional email looks and feels very different. It's black and white, has simple imagery, and even includes an icon on the top with an exclamation mark to communicate urgency. If we have a customer who's used to receiving HIMSS marketing emails and may have habituated to them, opening an email like the one on the right will instantly grab their attention and drive a higher likelihood of engagement simply because it feels much more official and urgent. So defining the differences between your transactional and marketing templates in your design system will both improve metrics and streamline your email creation by identifying those different styles from the start and having a blueprint to follow for both types of comms. Having these design differences really is essential because transactional emails have to grab the customer's attention, give them the information they need, and drive the desired action. If you don't nail that, you could risk disrupting conversion. Like, for example, if someone's credit card payment failed and you need to send them an email to enter in new credit info and they miss it or don't engage with it. It could create a negative experience, like if they place an order but never see their order confirmation email. And overall, it can damage customer loyalty when people don't feel like they can count on you as a brand to deliver this type of essential information in a way that's easy for them to receive. So diving a little deeper into our previous example from the Where's Waldo, this particular email goes out to prescription customers that need to have a check-in with their medical provider in order to continue receiving their prescription. Customers engaging with this email is crucial for maintaining HIMSS subscriber rate by preventing lapsed customers. So to drive engagement, we designed this email to stand out from our typical marketing comms in a few different ways. The first of which is the color scheme. I touched on this briefly before. Our standard marketing comms are really colorful, while this one is primarily black, white, and gray. All of our transactional emails consistently use a gray background color with a white container on top. And in contrast, all our marketing comms have white backgrounds. While subtle, this difference does instantly signal to the customer that they're looking at an email of a different nature. And next, we have our urgency icon in the upper right. This visually communicates that there may be a problem with the customer's prescription, or at least that there's something that demands their attention. By reserving this type of iconography for moments when we want to communicate urgency, we give it higher impact. And finally, we used very simple imagery here versus our marketing comms that have a lot of interesting lifestyle and product imagery. This image is very clean and a subtle communication of a prescription bottle that again signals to the customer that something regarding their prescription needs their attention and they need to click through via the call to action. So these are just some of the ways we've differentiated our transactional templates from our marketing emails and been successful in driving higher engagement. Laying out the guidelines for these differences in your design system will help with efficiency and impact when it comes to creating effective new templates for either type of comm. And to package everything up that we just talked about, we come to our final tip, which is looking ahead at creating a roadmap for refreshing your design system. So, when you have a super stacked project list and then someone messages you something like, hey, can we add some new modules to our design system? It's starting to get a little bit stale. I've totally been there, okay? Design systems are living, breathing entities at any brand. They need to evolve and grow as the needs of the company evolve and grow. Simultaneously, using the same pre-made templates or module wireframes over and over again can make your emails feel stale and contribute to lower engagement and conversion overall. The only thing is, email teams are often super busy, and getting a message like this when you already have a ton on your plate can feel pretty overwhelming. This has definitely happened to me before, and I had to think about the best way of approaching it. I worked through it by asking myself, how can I consistently keep our design system fresh and do it in a way that feels manageable and fits in with my other responsibilities? My solution to that was starting quarterly blue sky brainstorming sessions to kick off regular design refreshes. And let's break down what that actually looks like and how you might go about setting one up. First, I suggest including your lifecycle team, of course, but also pulling in cross-functional team members as well. Folks that work in other areas of the company can often offer unique and fresh perspectives that add a ton of value. Email is a very outward-facing channel, so it's highly likely they have ideas to bring to the table as well. And what is blue sky brainstorming? Well, it's a creative approach to generating ideas without limitations. Offer your team an open-ended prompt like, if anything in the world was possible, what direction would you go with our company's emails? How would they feel? What would they look like? The goal is to come up with innovative ideas by focusing on the idea itself rather than if it's realistic. This kind of thinking can lead to the most impactful results that are often more realistic than you might think. And when should you hold these brainstorms? I've found it really helpful to have them quarterly and ideally about a week after you do a quarterly performance review so that metrics are fresh in everyone's minds. And in terms of the how, this kind of brainstorm works really well for real-time collaboration. I love using FigJam, but any whiteboard tool where you can visually share ideas will work. And finally, why are you setting this up? Aligning on the schedule in advance solves our problem of needing to consistently evolve our design system, but also needing to do it in a way that fits in with our other responsibilities. Getting everyone on the same page about when the design system will be revisited and refreshed helps minimize last-minute requests because everyone is aware there's already a dedicated time to have this brainstorm, decide on the ideas to implement, and execute on them. All right, and with that, I can close out my discussion on the ways I developed efficiencies and scaled the design system at Hims and Hers as a one-person show that you can hopefully take away and apply to your own design system and help your team scale. Thank you so much for taking the time to come join me today. I really enjoyed being here with you all and would love to connect individually. Don't be afraid to send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn. All right, thanks again. I'd love to open it up and see if there are any questions.
All right, let's get Julia on stage here for some quick Q&A. Julia, how's it going? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, of course. Well, you are getting tons of cheers in the crowd, so I think that warrants for a good crowd. They loved your talk, so heck yeah, let's get into some Q&A real quick. This one was top of mind. Everyone's been asking this, so we got to ask this real quick. Are there any Figma courses you would recommend for beginners to learn how to use the tool to the fullest?
Yeah, I might have to do a little bit more digging into that one to have a really great answer. I know Figma has some courses on their site that might be a good place to start. I know they have some beginner courses, and then once you move through those, you can get onto some more advanced topics. But I might have to take some emails down for people that are interested in that one and follow up. I ended up just learning Figma on the fly, just kind of working with it and doing some trial and error instead of working with a course in particular. But I would love to dig into that for people.
Love it. Play with it till you break it. Love it. Hey, just kind of mess with everything. Love it. All right. This one, I love this question. This came in from Shannon Crable. She wanted to know, do you have any creative ways or tips with having to work with long disclosures or legal copy?
Yeah, I love that question too. At HIMSS, of course, there's a lot of legalities we have to consider as well. One thing I always try to keep in mind and ask our legal team is when a disclaimer can be in the footer and when it has to be in the body of the email. Of course, it's a little trickier to work with a long disclaimer that has to be in the body of the email, but more often than not, I think typically it's okay to put them in the footers. So having a lot of disclaimers in the footer section is less disruptive for the customer and ideal if that's possible. If you do need to put it in the body of the email, I think just making it a little bit smaller, trying to add some padding around it, and making it as least disruptive as possible while still having it be visible to the customer and giving them the essential info they need.
Got it. Got it. Okay, moving on here. I think we got time for like maybe one or two. Let's see here. Oh, another good one from Shannon. Shannon want to know, can you talk more about Liquid? Can you use that with any ESP or some ESPs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Liquid is the language in particular that Braze uses, which is the ESP we use at HIMSS. There are similar languages for other ESPs. Like I believe Iterable calls it handlebars, and it's like slightly different. The last time I worked in Klaviyo, I believe they were using Django. I don't know if they're still using that. But they're all like pretty similar to each other, just with slight nuances. And so each ESP should have documentation with whatever language that they use. And if you're working in an ESP that allows you to put custom HTML and CSS in it, then I'm sure they will allow you to use Liquid as well. It's just about looking at the documentation and figuring out which particular language they're using. Is it Liquid, Handlebars, Django, something else?
Got it. Got it. Okay, you heard it here first, folks. All right, and then let me see here. Richie wanted to know, where can you safely keep the modules or templates? Our HTML is a bit of a nightmare to try and chop in and out of. Any recommendations for Richie?
So if we're talking about HTML in particular, I think it's easiest usually to just keep that in your ESP and work in content blocks if you can, or those like snippets, and organize a library that way. I think it's also really helpful to have documentation for your modules and templates. We use Confluence at HIMSS, and that, especially as you get more into Liquid, is really helpful to have documentation to help people know how to use your HTML. But ideally, you have an ESP that makes it easy to organize it on their platform. If you don't, I like working in Email and Acid. I know they have folders that you can use as well. It can be a little bit of work to like go back and forth between Email and Acid and your ESP, but between the two of them, you should be able to find a way to make it work.
Got it. Got it. Okay. All right, Joey, we got time for one more. Let me see here. If you see one, call it out before I do. Let me see. Oh, this one came from an external. Did you ever test simple text-based transactional emails, or did you find those with design performance? Excuse me. Did you ever test simple text-based transactional emails, or did you find those with design performing better? I can drop that in here actually for you.
We did do a test for that. Yeah, we did a test once where it was like completely plain text email, like as if it came from just like someone you knew, versus a letters type template that was on our letterhead and had like a signature and the footer and all of that, like felt very branded. And we actually found in that test that the plain text email did better. It performed, it had more conversion, it had more engagement. So we have tested that out a bit. I think it depends on context. It depends on when you're using it. So you have to test into the different situations in which that really registers with the customer. But I do think that those emails can be really impactful. The ones that just feel simple, they feel like they came from a real person.
Got it. Got it. Love it. Love it. Awesome, Julia. That is unfortunately all the time we have today for Q&A. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with us. Crowd, can we get some reactions and some round of applause for Julia, please?
Thank you so much for having me. I loved being here.
Heck yeah, Julia, you got to come back. Thank you for being here.
I would love to.
For your first email camp, we had a blast. Ladies and gentlemen, Julia Papanek, thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your busy day. Round of applause for everyone for her, Julia. Awesome.
Thank you. I'll see you later.
Thank you, Julia. We'll see you soon. Take care. Upcoming our next session. Let's go to move on, shall we? See you there.